Beware my power, Green Lantern's light.
Most people see Hal Jordan's ring for the first time and go, it must be some flashy superhero accessory or an insignia. And only when they dig deep into the lore of Green Lantern do they realize that the ring's not simply an ornament or a decoration. It's a remarkably made instrument that can channel raw, undiluted willpower. Essentially, if you were to wear it, it would measure the strength of your conviction and ask, how far are you willing to push yourself? There's no external power source, no mechanical upgrades, and no specific innate power the wielder is born with that has a lot to do with how the ring functions. As long as the one wearing it refuses to quit, there's no army large enough that it can't crush. In today's video, I'm going to take Green Lantern's ring apart, theoretically, of course, and look at what it is, how it works, how it chooses its wielder, and what it costs the one wearing it. Let's dive right in.
Hold it, bug boy.
What exactly is sitting on a Green Lantern's finger? The ring on a Green Lantern's finger is among the most powerful weapons in the known universe in most continuities. Depending on the skill and conviction of the wearer, it could pretty much allow them to do anything they want. The most famous ability that we all know is about the creation of constructs that are powered by sheer force of will, and these take the physical form of solid green light. I think we've seen this almost everywhere in any Green Lantern movie or TV adaptation. While this is the basic premise of what a ring can do, as mentioned earlier, depending on the metal of the concerned lantern, the ring can do much, much more. For example, some of them can even appear invisible owing to their power. The Guardians of the Universe had founded the Green Lantern Corps to handle all things related to peacekeeping in the DCU. Each individual is given a power ring and a battery, and the latter offers unlimited energy for the duration of one planetary rotation in most cases. The ring needs to be charged from time to time as well. Beyond what I discussed, the ring could also make the wearer create force fields, heal themselves from near fatal injuries, and even alter the memories of others. It also grants all the lanterns access to the combined knowledge of the Guardians. Now do you see why it's considered one of the most powerful weapons in the DCU? Then again, I don't think calling it simply a weapon does it enough justice. That might be its primary objective, of course, but very few weapons can choose who wields them, or can act simultaneously as a supercomputer with access to OA's huge database. Coming to the history of the power rings in the context of Earth, I know diehard DC fans are already aware of what I'm about to say, but just in case we have some foundlings in our midst, this is for you. Pay attention. Alan Scott was the first to craft and wear a Green Lantern ring on Earth in modern times, and the Starheart powered it. What's a Starheart, you ask? Billions of years ago, the Guardians tried to remove all forms of magic from the universe. They were partially successful too, but some stray magical energies came together to form a mystical object known as the Starheart, and it slowly gained self-consciousness and became the green flame of light. Naturally, the Guardians tried to contain this as well, but since it was sentient, it set a part of itself on a journey through the universe to fulfill its destiny. Eventually, it found its way to Earth as a meteor and was passed from one hand to another for thousands of years, until the 1940s, when a railroad engineer named Alan Scott found it in the form of a train lantern and became the first Green Lantern on Earth in many hundreds of years. He's the only exception to the rule here because his power does not come from a ring connected to the central power battery database at OA. The creative power is the same in both cases, but Scott's is just more mystical. I know this was a slight deviation from what we're talking about, but this difference is important to know, because Hal Jordan and Alan Scott do not derive their powers from the same source. It's also noteworthy that Scott did use his ring's ability to create things, but he preferred to fight with his fists instead of relying on it as a weapon. And despite how weird this may sound, his ring's only weakness was wood. That's right, you could just stand in front of him with a random branch from a tree and that would neutralize his powers. This is why he's actually not a member of the Corps, but rather a part of the Justice Society of America. He was eventually granted some of the more modern Green Lantern powers in the future comic issues. Later, Gil Kane and John Broome decided to create Hal's character and the Green Lantern Corps, and we got a new origin for the ring and its source of power. These rings and their power batteries are very complex technologies. The central power battery was also later revealed to be the collective willpower of the DCU's emotional spectrum. as it absorbs the emotions that are radiated by every single being in the cosmos, and then stores all of that in a physical form so that it can be accessed. Therefore, they're now colloquially called the impossible scientific marvels. You can roughly think of them as mass-produced by the Guardians, but their individual prowess is still dependent largely on willpower. So if you ask me what exactly is sitting on a Green Lantern's finger, I think the most appropriate answer would be infinity.
Right. You want to dance? Let's dance!
How does the ring actually work under the hood? So I just said that the infinity is one of the best and most appropriate ways to describe what a ring can do, but there is indeed a catch. Every ring given to all 3,600 lanterns needs to be recharged periodically using their personal battery, or it'll stop doing what it does. In the 2011 Green Lantern animated series, we actually see this happen in episode 10, titled Regime Change. When Hal and Kilowog face off against the Red Lanterns and Ragnar at Batracis, they're nearly defeated because the charge levels of their rings fall drastically. It was only because of Ganthet that they're able to power up again, thanks to the interceptor radiating energy at the exact moment it was needed. Even Ganthet wasn't sure if it would work, but paraphrasing him, we must have hope. And thankfully it paid off, otherwise the Green Lanterns were close to being toast. This proves that the ring is not itself an infinite source of power, and it needs to recharge every 24 hours by touching the battery for 10 seconds. Pretty similar to the cell phones we use in a way, if Apple and Samsung came up with a technology to charge them in less than a minute. These chargers receive their energy from the central power battery at Oa, as mentioned earlier. This acts as a reservoir of the might of the Guardians of the Universe. And since it's powered by the emotional spectrum of the universe, it's pretty much an inexhaustible source of energy, and it's shared wirelessly to every power battery across the cosmos, for whenever a Green Lantern needs to recharge their ring. Originally, this was meant to be written as a creation of metal and magic, which was controlled by will, but it's since been amended and now acts like a massive Wi-Fi router. No matter where you are in the known universe, if you have a power ring and need to recharge it, the battery will draw energy from this giant router, and you will, once again, be able to do all kinds of cool stuff. This central reservoir is what makes every power plant made by humans look foolishly primitive, even though it's basically powered by the universe's inhabitants thinking and feeling hard enough. What's physically inside a Green Lantern ring? The most straightforward answer to this question is something we don't know for sure. There's no cross-sectional diagram that depicts the interior of a ring and what it contains. What I'm about to tell you has been gathered from years of comic issue releases, movies and shows, and other scattered lore. The ring, as well as the personal power battery, looks like they're made out of some kind of crystal, and this can change shape to fit to any kind of appendage. It's also extremely durable and can block attacks at the planetary level too, but this depends on the will of the Lantern to an extent. However, it can still be crushed or shattered in some cases, but it doesn't have the bending properties of metal, and that's why there's no way to describe it because it's not made of steel or titanium or anything humans have a name for. This crystalline thing resizes itself for whichever species it selects, so I guess there's some kind of technology that adapts to different biological forms. Does this mean this crystal is sentient? Once again, I can't give a definitive answer to this. It's very much like the wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. But that doesn't inherently mean wands have sentient abilities. The rings and batteries are very complicated technologies, and they have many computerized components that help with pretty much everything they can allow the wielder to do. This even includes an AI component, but again, not the kind you might be thinking of, which generates funny pictures and memes for you or helps you with your college essays. It allows the Lantern to fly even in the vacuum of space, and generates a form of life support so that the individual doesn't die from lack of air. It also does more typical AI functions like being a translator, except that it's universal. If a Lantern makes contact with any alien species, they can effortlessly communicate with each other thanks to the ring. It also acts as a scanning device in every sense of the term because it can analyze, record, and report anything from unknown forms of technology to an injury. In the Green Lantern the Animated Series, 2011 to 2013, the ring's AI companion is named Aya, and it provides real-time tactical analysis. We still have a lot to go on the AI front in terms of healthcare, but if you happen to have one of these rings, it can help you diagnose and even heal things that we haven't even recognized as illnesses. It also allows for things humanity will probably never be able to develop, like teleportation and time travel. So calling it a supercomputer resting on your finger is also a very underrated description. Think of it as the most versatile tool in existence.
Die trying.
What powers does the ring have, and what are its limits? This is where the ring stops being just impressive and crosses into the territory of jaw-dropping. What I'm about to say now is going to be similar to a systems tour describing everything the ring can do, along with the limits on its powers. The most iconic power is the ability to create green-colored hard-light constructs. And just in case you're wondering why green, it's because in the emotional electromagnetic spectrum, green is the color of willpower. The ring can use electromagnetic forces like heat, light, gravity, and radiation to allow the lantern to fly not just through the sky, but also through space at very fast speeds. It can be close to 99% the speed of light in normal space, and it sometimes can even top that. It also gives the wearer superhuman strength using the same constructs of light, and endows unimaginable durability to the individual as well. A human being with no suit, no ship, no external equipment can stand in a vacuum and breathe, protected entirely by the ring's automatic systems. Now these are not innate, as a lantern cannot become freakishly strong just because he wears the ring. It's the science behind the ring that allows him to use that strength when needed. Some degree of cellular regeneration is also possible through it, as we've seen the Green Lantern use it to heal his own injuries and those of others. In fact, Simon Boz used this ability to bring his brother-in-law out of a coma. Energy projection is another cool thing it can do, which includes producing kryptonite and kryptonite radiation. Seasoned fans know that some powerful users like Hal Jordan have been able to even give Superman a run for his money this way. Another interesting aspect is that the constructs created by the ring match the personality of the users, proving exactly how their individuality translates into their powers. I'll discuss this in a few minutes separately, because it really forms the basis of the physiological willpower connection the ring has with its wearer. The ring can also produce an energy twin of the lantern, which can work while the physical body of the wielder remains motionless. There are limits to what the twin can do, and it has to be powered by the actual person. Most notably, this method is used by the Guardians to contact the Green Lanterns. Another cool power is the fact that the rings can absorb energy from other sources. But pay attention here, this does not act as a substitute for the 24-hour recharge all rings have to mandatorily undergo. This absorbed energy can be used as a weapon or any other form of defense, so it just stays stored. It does not recharge the ring as such. The lantern can also effectively become invisible by willing light waves to bend around his or her body in such a way that it remains undetected by the naked eye. Hal Jordan used this trick to cover the ring so that it was visible only when he changed into the Green Lantern. Naturally, the matter-bending properties of the ring also translate to other aspects, which can allow lanterns to pass through solid objects like walls. Mind alteration sounds really fascinating, but it has an obvious gray area in terms of ethics. Lanterns have resorted to this usually only in cases where it was a matter of life and death. I have just touched on the issue of time travel a while back, so let me explain a bit more accurately here. Did you know that Hal Jordan once explored what the 70th century was like in his Green Lantern form? This particular ability has another offshoot because it also allows the wearer to communicate with different life forms at different points in time through telepathy. The further you dig into the lore, the ring starts to look less like a weapon and more like a device without hard limits, willpower considered, which is where the trouble can begin. Because if it's such a versatile instrument, it can do both good and bad things. So what's exactly stopping a Green Lantern from joining the dark side? You see, what a ring can do depends entirely on its user. It's a conduit of willpower, as I've been saying over and over. So even if it packs the energy that can destroy the Earth, it can't move even a boulder if the wearer has a weak will, and in some cases, greed or other nefarious intentions. Doing all these unimaginable feats requires a lot of focus, so the most significant limitation of the ring is the willpower of the wielder. Fear, trauma, grief, distraction, all of these can affect the wearer's will and bleed into whatever constructs he or she is trying to create. So, only people with exceptional willpower can use it. Otherwise, it truly is just a decorative item in the wrong, or should I say unworthy, hands. Maybe a little bit like Thor's hammer, but I also want to point out here that the concept of willpower itself is not static. It fluctuates depending on external circumstances or emotions, which no one can control. And let's not forget that the central power reservoir itself is powered by those same emotions. So in dire situations, if a lantern is unable to channel the required will to do something, that's not an inherent sign of weakness. After all, different scenarios need different kinds of emotions that eventually get translated into willpower. Since the greatest limitation of the ring is psychological, drug use, neural interference, or any other kind of mental incapability will render it ineffective. The yellow impurity is one of the most well-known limits because it signifies fear and weakness, and is often seen in rookie lanterns. It can be overcome if a green lantern can accept and face their own fear. Lastly, a very glaring limitation is the fact that no matter how mentally strong the wearer is, all the rings need to be recharged. They do not discriminate in that sense. If your ring runs dry on the wrong planet in front of the wrong enemy, doesn't matter how strong your willpower is. These rings mostly require their users to be conscious of being used actively, but in some cases, the Guardians can remotely influence what they do, even without the consent or knowledge of the Lanterns. In keeping true to their mission of peace, the power rings also cannot be used to take a life, but this prohibition regarding lethal force was lifted by the Guardians during the Sinestro Corps War. How did the ring evolve from magic trinket to cosmic tech? Right from Alan Scott's Starheart-powered ring to Hal Jordan's standard-issue Green Lantern Corps ring, and later the one he forged himself out of sheer willpower, the origins of the ring have never been the same. Every Green Lantern storyline has tried to answer that same question. What exactly is the ring? And the answer has, every time, given us new clues about what the ring and its wearer are capable of. So let me quickly walk you through the history of the Green Lantern ring on Earth. When Alan discovered his Starheart-powered artifact, he naturally had no idea what it was. Moreover, he didn't find it in the shape of a ring, but rather as an actual lantern out of which he made a ring. His case has always been more mystical as opposed to the other lanterns, who derived their powers from science. Later, Alan's ring was linked to the Guardians in Green Lantern Volume 3, number 19. Yalen Gur was the greatest and most capable lantern of his time, so much so that the Guardians removed the yellow weakness from his ring. They were immensely confident that the man would not be tempted by even unlimited power. Of course, they were wrong. Yalen Gur became an extremely corrupt tyrant in ancient China, so the Guardians had to do something to make sure he wouldn't raise hell, at least any more than he already had, of course. So they programmed his ring in such a way that it became weak and defenseless against wood. And this, in turn, made the tyrant susceptible to damage from farmers who were armed with wooden clubs. Oh, how the mighty fall. And yay for the peasants. This ring and battery then got corrupted by a piece of the Starheart and got repowered. And many hundreds of years later, it ended up in the hands of Alan Scott. The Corps always wore power rings after Crisis on Infinite Earths, but before that, they were given firearms instead. In the Silver Age, Hal Jordan became the new face of the Green Lantern and brought with him a completely different origin story, connected to the central power battery on Oa. The lanterns were no longer powered by any kind of magic, but solid, pure technology. Thousands of such rings were granted to individuals who had the ability to become freelance peacekeepers of the universe in a way, and the Green Lantern Corps was officially formed. As I mentioned a while back, originally there were two things the rings of the Corps members could not be used to do. One of them was the rule to not take anyone's life, since the Guardians were in favor of peace. The other was the ring's inability to affect anything colored yellow. Initially, the yellow thing was considered to be a built-in characteristic so that the lanterns would not become all-powerful. But, as many of you might know, this impurity was actually the handiwork of the Fear avatar, Parallax. This entity was trapped within the central power battery, which was the main router that powered the rings, and Parallax was able to manifest by manipulating the fears of every individual Green Lantern. Essentially, it led to some kind of infection within the system. Once it became known that Parallax was behind the yellow impurity of the rings, Lanterns who were able to conquer their fears overcame this weakness. There's an interesting case here about Hal Jordan going crazy and decimating the Corps, which led to the creation of a slightly different power ring, which later became known as the Honor Guard power ring. Since he was possessed by Parallax, Hal had gone mad with power, and Ganthet, the last Guardian, bestowed a ring to Kyle Rayner. This man had no formal training as such, but was able to master the ring, and eventually, he manifested all the usual powers of a Green Lantern. There were only two drawbacks in his case. He couldn't access the knowledge of the Guardians since there was no central power battery anymore, and he also couldn't duplicate his ring to share his powers with anyone. Later, the Corps was restored, and Kyle's ring was able to tap into the central power battery and gain all the abilities that the other Lanterns had. He still had one edge over them though. His ring did not need mandatory recharging every 24 hours. It was then reserved for veteran lanterns only, as it was some kind of Medal of Honor they were awarded if they proved worthy of it. In the 2023 Dawn of DC Green Lantern series, things get even more exciting because Hal gets exiled to Earth and the Guardians are not in the picture. He then creates a power ring out of his willpower alone. Think of it as the good take on Sauron forging his ring in the fires of Mount Doom. Hal had no access to the central power battery or the expertise of the Guardians. He basically demonstrated why he's one of the most celebrated Green Lanterns of all time, by building a ring from scratch. Using this ring, he was able to create simple constructs and illusions, and he could also fly. However, his movements were restricted within the Earth's atmosphere. I won't spoil anything else from here because you really have to experience what happens after this for yourself. No matter how I put it, I won't do justice to this series. How do different lanterns' personalities shape the same ring? You remember how I said the ring's like a standardized piece of technology. Despite that, the result produced is never the same. Because, you guessed it, it depends on the individual's willpower. Let's start with Hal Jordan, who is trained as a pilot. So his constructs are more combat heavy and precise. Massive fists, energy blasts, those are his preferences. Kyle Rayner is an artist, so his constructs always have a level of imagination to them which other lanterns aren't able to match up to. And that's not a bad thing, obviously, it just highlights Kyle's individuality. Some of his constructs even look absurdist at times, and they might make you think why anyone in their right mind would conjure up a fire-breathing kaiju or a huge pinball machine in a fight. As a self-proclaimed manga nut with a power ring, whatever he creates looks innately artistic and so weird that it ends up being super impressive. And he even manages to upgrade all of that while manifesting them, just like how artists tweak and adjust their designs. Similarly, John Stewart's constructs reflect the architectural bend of his mind, since they often look very mechanical. They look extremely detailed down to the last nut and bolt. They are straight out of an engineering professor's dream. And this is why John is the one lantern I find extremely interesting, because his constructs aren't exactly weapons in the conventional sense. He just creates things that are extremely detailed and uses them as weapons in a way no one can ever imagine. Remember the time he built a completely functional Kryptonian teledisruptor just by studying the blueprints General Zod had provided? He was also able to create pure kryptonite down to the last atom just by using his willpower. Take a second and think about this. Kryptonite is the only weakness someone like Superman has, who's basically seen as a god in the DCU. And this guy's able to manifest what Superman does not mess with. All three of these lanterns have the same ring. Okay, Kyle's is slightly different, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? The same ring design can create three completely different signatures. If you were given a ring, you would have at your disposal the basic hardware that all of the other thousands of lanterns have. But you'd be different because that same ring would amplify who you are in a completely distinct manner. Where does the ring sit in the wider color spectrum? There's a range of colors in the emotional spectrum, and each of them represents one of the particular states of mind. Some colors can overwhelm their wearers. Take the red lanterns, for instance. Red signifies rage, because they're so angry all the time that they're barely able to speak, and their blood can literally boil inside their bodies. Only the strongest-willed ones among them can rein in their emotions. Yellow lanterns have the ability to instill fear and weakness in the minds of others, and violet lanterns are considered to be champions of love. Love, however, is not an easy emotion to control. So often, violet lanterns can act in a manner that signifies they are under the spell of love, and not in a good way. It can drive them to do anything to preserve what they understand as love. Blue lanterns are considered to be right behind the green guys as a sort of supportive class, since they inspire hope and willpower in others. However, in order to exercise their power fully, I think they need to be close to green lanterns, because what is hope if it's not backed by will? Orange lanterns are also possible to find, and they're powered by greed. The ultraviolet corps derive their power from hidden negative emotions. White lantern corps are powered by the energy of life itself, while the black lantern corps get their power from the extreme edge of the emotional spectrum that represents death. The only reason why I went into detail regarding the other colors is so that you can clearly see how all of them have some kind of imbalance attached to them. Green sits right in the middle of the emotional spectrum and signifies emotional balance. The Green Lanterns get their power from the force of will, not from love or anger or greed or death. All other rings are derived from emotions that can be so extreme that they end up being parasitic to the wearer, influencing the person till they get to the point of no return. So green, symbolizing stability, is what the Guardians chose. And it's this color that grants the ability to channel all other colors through it due to that exact reason. This is what happened with Kyle Rayner, who became the ultimate White Lantern because he was able to channel all the other colors. So we started with a glowing band on a finger, which ended up being one of the most powerful, versatile, and thought-provoking items in the DC universe. It's a device that works on willpower. For someone like Hal Jordan, it can become the most potent supercomputer in the history of the universe. For someone with a weak resolve, it won't even work like those keypad cell phones from the early 2000s. The Green Lantern ring will not make you someone you're not. It'll just amplify what you already have inside you. If this deep dive sparked something in you, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure to like this video if you liked it and ring that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos. There's a lot more happening here that'll interest fans like you. That's going to be all for this video. So, as always, stay safe and don't forget to stay marvelous.